Is it possible to fall in love with someone just by asking 36 questions?
One question.
One question. Oh.
Go ahead.
Do share. One of the most popular articles this morning on the New York Times website poses that idea. The author relies on the research of psychologist Arthur Aron, who brought together pairs of strangers. They were told to ask each other a series of increasingly personal questions. He found that afterwards, the pair felt greater closeness than strangers who engage in just small talk. Sari Cooper is a certified sex therapist, and she joins us in the studio to talk about it. Three different people. Hey, Sari.
Hi.
3 different people sent me this article, and I don't know if they're worried about me or they're just thinking it's a really great
One of
article.
them was Nora.
Yes, Nora's looking out for me. Good looking out. But the questions were fascinating to me. What were they trying to accomplish with questions and looking for love?
Well, the original study had the 3 sets of questions, and each set got more and more personal as it went on. And the original question, was, what do you have in common with another person? Well, that's something that, is fairly easy to answer. Doesn't take a lot of guts or courage to expose. But I do think they're trying to get people to become more vulnerable.
I think this is fascinating because the idea is, can you create intimacy with someone by a series of questions? And what is that sort of interpersonal closeness, as the study suggests, that is really important? Let's look at some of the questions. Question number 10, if you could change anything about the way you were raised, what would it be? Why do you think that question would bring strangers closer together?
Well, what I find as a therapist, when people start talking about their childhood, even when their partner or spouse is present, the partner and spouse starts to lean in and feel warmer. But even with strangers, when you talk about your childhood, you're talking about it through the eyes of being a child, which really warms people to you, because it's like someone looking at a picture of yourself when you were a kid and they go, oh, you were so cute.
Yes.
I mean, suddenly you're drawing someone closer, and it also shows reflection. What would you change? What wouldn't you change? Were you happy?
But it seems to me the most important thing is vulnerability.
Correct. That's what I think it's all about, and being able to expose that
begs
insecurities. Right.
Yeah, because there are a lot of basic questions. Where are you from? I call them geographical dating. Where did you go to school? What do you like? What are the foods you like? All that kind of stuff.
Right.
Exactly.
Which is all kind of boring. But I like question number 30. When did you last cry in front of another person by yourself? Cry in front of another person and by yourself. What do you think you learn about a person from that answer? And what if I don't like the answers that you get?
Okay, so the first part of it, I think it's a very American question.
Yeah.
In other cultures, people cry much more openly. In American culture, it's considered a very personal thing to cry.
And people always apologize when they cry, too.
That's
I'm always
true.
amazed
That's
by
true.
that. Yeah.
I mean, not in a therapy session. Even in a therapy session, I'll say, you're allowed to cry here. But what I think it says is, what are you crying about? When you tell someone, I cried here, with my girlfriend, it tells you who's close to you, and it also tells you, how often do they cry in some ways. Like, it's been, 6 months since I cried.
It's really an interesting exercise. The other thing the article talks about is how we should talk to more people about what we admire about in them, that's a great way to do things. But also, at the end of the piece, too, this same psychologist said partners should look into each other's eyes without speaking for 4 minutes
That's
and just
a long
stare at each other. Have you done it?
I have done it, because it's an exercise that you have to do when you become a certified sex therapist, actually.
What are we looking for when we're looking into each other's eyes?
So it actually comes from a tradition of Tantra uses that, and they call it gazing. And what happens is, unconsciously, you become in the same pattern of breathing as your partner. It almost feels like a trance. You calm down, time starts to move a little slower, and you actually, eyes are the windows to your soul. You start to see someone for who they are, and they see you. So it's a very vulnerable experience. I think that's what the writer was getting at in the article.
Are you calming down? Are you getting a little slower? I took off my glasses so you could see the window of my soul a little better.
I need another glance.
Thank you, Sari Cooper. Listen, let me put them on so I can see. To see the full list of 36 questions.
50 Cent looked into your soul.
He wasn't looking at her soul, Charlie. Read the paper.
He's a very nice man. Don't hate, Charlie. Don't hate. To see the full list of 36 questions from psychologist Arthur Aron and the instructions for the exercise, go to CBSThisMorning.com.